Welcome to Human Potential at Work, the show where we explore social impact, inclusion, and empowerment of everyone, including persons with disabilities. Get ready to be inspired, hear success stories, and learn tips and principles for bringing out the best in everyone.
Hello, everyone. This is Deborah, and this is Human Potential at Work. Today, my guest is Seth Rosenzweig. Hopefully, I said that correctly. He will correct me if I did not. And he's going to tell us about the work that he's doing with Go Impact. So, Seth, welcome to the program and tell us about you and about the work that you're doing.
Sure. So first of all, Deborah, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here with you and all of you watching. I came into Team Impact about 2 years ago and really have always kind of been ingrained into how do we work around disability inclusion, changing the world, et cetera, from when I was younger. And my mother was a director of special education at a high school and really a pioneer in inclusion, as well as, my father being a school psychologist. So it's always been ingrained in my DNA to focus on issues for those who have been oftentimes, put on the margins. And I came to Team Impact with an opportunity to take an organization that was a really good startup and really focused on improving the quality of life and inclusion for people who are dealing with serious and chronic illness as well as disabilities. And also being able to, through our vehicles, being able to kind of transform a generation of college athletes.
Which is pretty impressive because that's how we build our future leaders. So tell us more about, what you're doing at Team Impact.
Sure. So, really what we're doing is working with kids between the ages of 5 and 18 who are dealing with serious and chronic illnesses as well as disabilities, who are really having the social and emotional challenges related to their circumstances. And we're providing them with a support network using college athletics as a vehicle. And so imagine a child who is really struggling and drafting them onto a college athletic team around the country. We always say we're not just matching, we're not creating mascots, we're not granting wishes, we're really improving quality of life at a critical time using therapeutic techniques in a non-traditional therapeutic setting. And that allows us to look at areas of confidence and belonging, remove social isolation, and really allow these children to thrive. Sometimes just be kids again, other times really help them with some of the social and emotional issues that comes with some of these challenges that they're facing. At the same time, we provide a support network to their families to help lessen their anxiety and allow them to be as normal as a family unit as possible. While the opportunity in terms of numbers, in terms of leverage, is how do we impact a generation of college athletes in terms of empathy and civic mindedness to hopefully start changing the world for this next generation. So imagine a child is drafted onto a team local to where he or she lives for a 2 to 3 year experience where they're interacting with the team about once a week. And the nice thing is we have social workers who are kind of facilitating these relationships that are not just working on kind of the general idea around sense of belonging, confidence, and removing isolation, but also on an individualized game plan for that child. So if that child is having trouble in school, or if that child is having trouble making friends, we create activities that the team will work on so that after that 2 years, when the child graduates from the program, for those who have kind of more acute issues, they're able to kind of hopefully return to a normal social setting. But for those who have more chronic challenges, having the tools and the confidence to be, happy with who they are, despite any limitations, and to be able to kind of have the most prideful life as possible, working on some of the issues that their family says they were dealing with. So it's an amazing, started out as first year as 17 children matched on 17 New England teams. Now we have 1,600 kids. We've engaged about 50,000 college athletes. We're in 48 states, and we work with almost 600 colleges and universities. And I would just say that although we have 3 kind of target populations, the children, their families, and the college athletes, the ripple effect that this can have on a community is really the biggest opportunity around empathy and inclusion and treating everyone with kindness, understanding differences. And we have a lot of great work to do. We actually have 1,200 teams on a waiting list who want to be matched with these children. And so around the country. And so the more children and families that know about our program, the more opportunity are to make a difference in the world.
I agree. And I think that one thing that's interesting about what you're doing is just the way things are set up. A lot of times, somebody that's on the football team or the cheerleaders are the top of the pack. And then people with, disfigurement or disabilities or chronic illness are at the lower. And it's it's not supposed to work that way, but it just sort of works that way. And one thing I love about the work that you're doing is you're bridging those gaps, because the reality is we all have something to teach to each other. And I know one of the stories that you told me when we first talked that definitely choked me up some was the story about the individual that was being bullied and ran into the bathroom. Do you remember that story?
Yeah, so that's Brady.
Yeah.
Brady, who
Yeah.
has Charge syndrome, genetic disorder that causes deformities that can be life-threatening, but for him, he looks different than his peers. And, he was 8 years old when we drafted him onto the Merrimack men's soccer team, and really it became his life, became his best friends. They really helped him through some social challenges. One day, like I said, he was being bullied. The children were running after him, and he ran into the bathroom and tried to lock the door behind him. Unfortunately, a child kicked the door, hit him in the nose, hurt him, and he was sent to the hospital. His mother called 3 people. She called her husband to let him know what happened. She called their doctor, and then she called the coach and said, Brady won't be at practice today. And Brady never misses a practice. 3 days later, Brady returns to, in the parking lot, getting out of his car. The team sees him. They jump the fence. They meet him in the parking lot, and they say, Brady, this will never happen again. The next day, the entire team and coaching staff show up at his school and hold an all-school assembly on treating people with kindness, anti-bullying, and now the school and all these kids are changed at a critical time. And Brady is now kind of the king of the school, right? He already had his brothers from the soccer team, but now we're able to actually impact how these younger kids look at the world. And that's really what we're trying to do, is that ripple effect. And that's one of, I can go on forever. We would have to, have a 24-hour podcast on how to all these great stories. And the aggregate of that is, if we do this right, we have ambitious goals for growth that, by 2022, we want to be adding about 1,000 children a year to our program. So having 2,000 at any time, which would equate to about 75,000 college athletes every year. And so we're talking big numbers, and we're talking about true influence, and whether those college athletes become influencers in business or professional athletes, or they go into medicine. Many of them ask me for jobs. So, although we're growing, I don't know if we're going to be growing at that pace. Our ability to really look at systems change and really think about future leaders that are empathetic and civic minded and inclusive and treat people with kindness and are just good people that want to make a difference in their local communities. The opportunity is tremendous. And one of the other great parts of our conversation initially was, you can't really teach this in a classroom, right? You can't force feed someone to learn about empathy or learn about inclusion, but they learn by doing. They learn by experiential, right? So they may come into the program saying, we're going to provide great improved quality of life for this child, right? Oh, it's a nice thing to do. What happens is, when a child is not defined and is empowered, but not defined by their challenge, or not defined by what they can't do, or if they look different, they're empowered to teach these college athletes around grit and perseverance, and around, what a bad day really looks like. It's not about not scoring that goal today or losing that game, but here's some of life's challenges. It really sets their kind of benchmark a little bit differently around how they look at the world. And that's what we see. The broken record comment we get all the time is, we as a college athletes have gotten way more out of this than what we put in.
Yeah, and I think about what these
Hi. Hello, Seth. We'll Deborah will rejoin us in a moment. This is oh, there we go. I just yeah, sorry about that. As people know, the hurricane is you're right in the middle of hurricane path. So anyway, I'll let you, sorry to interrupt.
No, thank you, Doug. Yeah, Hurricane Florence is stomping North Carolina and South Carolina right now, but it's also, slamming a little bit on Virginia too. So sorry about that. But Seth, do you mind just give an example of how it would look? How would a school, how would a team get involved? How do you get the participants? How does it work? How does somebody get involved? And also, Seth, tell us too about corporations that are getting behind you and supporting you, because if you don't have the money to do this, right. Doug and I have talked about this many times on the show. I'm looking forward to a time in the world where we're going to look at the work that you're doing, for example, Seth, and shower you with money because it is having such tremendous positive influence on our communities. And right now we seem to give money to, we spend money in the wrong ways as opposed to doing things that will really impact our communities in a positive way.
Yeah. So, great questions. The first thing I'd say is when I came in, we were running a national organization out of Boston. And so we were very New England focused. I think what we've been able to do is look at building regional infrastructure. So we're piloting regions around the country with staff on the ground that are building relationships with referral partners. And so we have a West Coast, we have staff on the West Coast now, we have staff in the Mid-Atlantic. And over the next 5 years, we're going to put staff in the Midwest, the Southeast, in Texas, in Denver, and either Kansas City or St. Louis to be able to regionally cover the country. And what we found is, one of our top referral partners is pediatric hospitals. If you look at our top 5, it's pediatric hospitals, it's other like-minded organizations that work with children with a serious or chronic illness or disability. It is our social media and things like this, podcasts, social media. And then the last one is really our families are so connected in the areas that they're focused on, and so they're actually great ambassadors for us, and they can kind of help get the message out there around who are other kids in communities that can really be part of this program and thrive. So that's kind of how we get a referral. We look for a college or university that's close to where the child lives, because it's not a one-shot program. It's really a relationship experience model. We then will vet the team, we'll train the team, and not just on how to work with Team Impact, but also on the individualized game plan for that child, and do a lot of work up front to build a strong relationship to make sure that it is set up the right way. And then we have social workers that basically facilitate these relationships to ensure quality, consistency, impact, mitigate risk, etc. The child goes through about a 2-year experience, and then they would graduate and become part of our new alumni program, where they then help mentor the next child and family onto the team and stay engaged with the teams, just without the case management. And so that's kind of how it would work. I think from a resource standpoint, you're absolutely right. My biggest challenge is just capacity, right? So being able to really scale this thing. And we went through a pretty, thoughtful, both theory of change process, measurement and evaluation. So now we're actually measuring our impact, not just, to showcase our impact, but also to be able to tweak our program to make sure we're having the quality experience that we want for our kids and families and teams. And, really our opportunity is to leverage resources. Most right now we're kind of focused on the philanthropic side, but our hope is with data that we can actually prove not just causality, but also correlation around medical compliance, clinical value, et cetera, so that, there's some potential money on the public sector as well as from the insurance companies that truly see our ability to kind of have lower cost healthcare if we do this preventatively. So a lot of opportunity, but ultimately, we're looking for resources, and we're looking for diversification of resources to really grow. Right now, it costs right around $2,500 to match and facilitate a relationship for a year, and that will go down somewhat as we get kind of the economies of scale effect and we build the infrastructure. And we're also looking at a much lower cost model to actually go hyper local. So regional, I mentioned in terms of the infrastructure, but we're actually piloted this year a group of student athlete fellows that applied. We just focused on the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic to kind of pilot it. We had about 30 fellows that were selected. They came in for a 3-day training with Northeastern University in their Center for Sport and Society, how to sport impact society. And they developed a curriculum with us, 3 days of training on kind of empathy, inclusion, breaking down barriers, those types of things, and then training on how to run our program. And now they're deployed in their local areas to be able to actually run reporting up to the regional director. So imagine 2022, we have our 7 regions built out with 2 staff on the ground in each region, but we have over 250 fellows that are influencers that are going to be even more changed because they're kind of buying in fully to our program, but also they're deployed to kind of help run the program in their local region. So, ultimately right now our budget's about 3.6 million. We hope to grow it in 5 years to about 6 million, 6.5 million. We hope to be raising about 7.5 to 10 million by then. And the companies that we've engaged in so far, I'd say the pharma companies have been very interested. Vertex Pharmaceuticals has been our first corporate partner. They're all in for kids with CF and other diseases. Not only have they invested significantly financially, but they are helping us find kids, right? Because they're very connected in this space. So it's actually a win-win. So the biopharma space is really interesting for us. And then we have some other companies that are Boston-based but national. So and they, and they're interested in, employing their workforce, right? Which is great for us, as we can influence their workforce. They're interested in volunteering. They're interested in hiring a diverse competitive workforce, so helping get access to our college athletes. One of them, Wellington, is interested in helping hire people with disabilities and promoting kind of, not only is it the nice, right thing to do, but it's actually good for business. And so we're looking at developing a more robust corporate partnership program where businesses don't just feel like they're being transactional, but they feel like they're all in, they can move the needle, it's going to influence their workforce, and they're going to be not only better citizens, but they're going to be more productive business-wise.
And I have to just do an applause for that, because I totally agree with you. My most recent book is called Inclusion Branding, and I'm speaking to the corporate brands that want to have impact. They want to have social impact. Well, one way that you can have real, true social impact is by supporting programs like yours that take this to the local level. I speak globally. I think it's very important that we talk about these topics from a global perspective, certainly than a national, but what happens, it happens locally.
Yeah.
And so, you look at, college athletes are important all over the world. I mean, sports are so important to the world. My husband is a ridiculous sports fan, it's just ridiculous. It's like he's so excited because it's the fall and football is back.
Right.
So and I'm more of a typical woman, is like, but people are getting hurt playing football. That scares me. So, but it is so important to our societies. It really is. And so I have been troubled, like many people, watching, the past, say 10, 15 years, where sometimes it seems like all we're hearing in the news about athletes are what they're doing wrong and how they're beating up their wife or their girlfriend or whatever, taking drugs or, doing naughty things. But that's why a program like yours, I think, is so powerful, because not only is it teaching these athletes at a time when this is when they're deciding what they're going to do for the rest of their life, but the people that you're helping that, might look different, might feel different during the day, that get isolated. It's just it's a powerful way for people to connect with each other. And this is going to change their lives for the rest of their lives and others. And like you said, it's impacting the families and, so it's, if you don't mind, will you give us a few more stories? Because how I learn is understanding what the stories are. So you gave me a couple of stories that I instantly got it, but tell us a few more stories.
And I'll limit it, but I think there's so many to tell. And one really interesting story is a child named Larry. Larry had every major organ outside of his body when he was born, had been given very little chance to live. He's got spina bifida. He looks very different than his friends. He lives in Michigan. He's homeschooled. He hates how his body looks. Was embarrassed by it. great kid. We drafted him onto the University of Michigan football team, right? I went out for the draft day. Every child gets a draft day. It's they're branded. They get them, they sign their national letter of intent. They get their locker, they get their jersey, and there's a media press conference. So Larry was there, and you saw him go from a very kind of closed in, embarrassed person to the happiest person out there. And Larry has had over 100 surgeries. He's really struggling medically, but these are now his brothers. And the interesting thing about Larry is we heard about Larry because of another child that was matched with the lacrosse team at University of Michigan, and he would recommended Larry. And I'll tell you Larry, the kind of where Larry is right now. But the interesting thing, the opportunity for us is when we get 3 or more kids matched on teams at universities, that's when you get a bigger ripple effect. That's when it doesn't become that one shot on that one team. It becomes part of the athletic fabric, and it becomes part of the campus fabric. And I think that's what we're trying to do. So Larry, he goes to games, he goes to team dinners, he goes to practices, he comes out of his shell, right? He sees his body as his like battle scars. He's tough. He now is he's still homeschooled, but he's taking a couple classes at the local public school, and people kind of around town, they know Larry, right? He's a celebrity. The first time he ever ran, so he never really run before in his life, was into the big house in front of 110,000 fans being announced. And the camera guy didn't think he could run, so he tripped over his wire. But Larry bolted onto the field, and it was an amazing moment. And I asked the 14 players 2 years ago, I said, that were drafted into the NFL. I said, what was your greatest moment in your last year at Michigan? And Davion Smith and John O'Corn and Jake Butt all said, seeing Larry, who had never really run before in his life, run in front of and seeing that grit and perseverance that he was going to do it no matter what. And Larry, we surprised him with a trip to the Orange Bowl that his teammates surprised him with. The cool thing about Larry's story is that it's actually, because it sort of went viral in that area, that it's influenced so many people about how they look at the world. And Larry, the cool thing is, like, the local high school, I think they're called Pinckney, the Pinckney Pirates. They also decided to kind of draft Larry. And so it kind of went down to the high school level, and now he's kind of part of 2 teams. And so you just see this child that was so, thoughts of, really, tough thoughts, right? Anxiety, depression, really feeling like an outcast. And now he's a central figure in that community. And, that's just one, amazing story and even like the coach, right? Coach Harbaugh, very well-known coach, there's a lot of great stories that, he's saying, Larry, we're all in it for Larry. Larry's all in it for us. Like, he's a real part of this team. It's not like he's sitting on the sideline for 1 or 2 games. The amazing thing was another child named Jude, who he has a kind of a challenge with his joints. So he can't really walk well. He can't get dressed. He can't walk downstairs. And he's getting to an age now where he can't play sports, and all his friends are playing sports. So Jude and Larry connected. Jude heard about the program, and we drafted him onto the University of Michigan men's basketball team. And we all know how well they did last year, right? They went to the national championship. He met Sister Jean at the national championship. And Jude, similar story, right? He felt like he was isolated. He couldn't play sports, couldn't really do things that his friends were doing. And so the ripple of like kids helping kids is also an empowerment moment. We do have stories that although the outcome for the child doesn't end very well, right? We have about 10 to 12 children who pass away each year. We have a child named Ari, who had a serious heart condition, but it had huge impacts on everything, right? I mean, he may have a cardiac issue as a primary condition, but it impacts everything, neurodevelopment, et cetera. He's 4 years old. My wife was actually his nurse at Boston Children's Hospital, and I met them as I was transitioning. I was at Boston Children's before, and I said, this child was in the garden attached to a pick line, and I just see him hitting these like wiffle balls, and I'm like, this kid's amazing, and he knows every stat of every Red Sox. I said, Ari, how you doing? And he was isolated. He was in the hospital for like 150 days straight, no friends, didn't really feel connected to anyone. I said, you know what, I got an opportunity for you. So we drafted him onto the Assumption baseball team. And he completely came out of his shell. But the interesting thing about Ari's story, Ari needed a heart transplant. He was in the hospital for 170 days straight waiting for a heart. Every day from Worcester, Massachusetts to Boston which is about an hour drive, his teammates would come and they would sit with him. They watched the Super Bowl with him in the hospital. I mean, they were his best friends. Unfortunately, Ari, he did get the heart, but unfortunately, he had acute rejection and he passed away. And at his funeral, these college athletes spoke, and they talked about how Ari transformed their lives. And, they were the ones who eventually, buried him. And I think for them, it was just this moment where they just transformed. They changed their career trajectory. They changed how they look at the world. They keep his legacy alive. And so that's just another, amazing story that, really taught these college athletes around what's important in life, and the coaches were completely impacted by this. So, those are a couple of stories. I have, a variety more that I can share too, but I think, it's an amazing to do what I do every day and feel close to mission and see this opportunity in front of us. If we get the right partners involved, we can truly continue to grow and change the world. And that's what it's about, right?
I agree. And so, what kind of woman would I be if I didn't say, so, are you working with any women's professional teams? Because
Yeah.
we're very proud
Yes.
of our women athletes. We're
Well,
very
actually,
proud of what we're becoming. Yeah. So
yeah,
go ahead.
let me, it's a really good point. And we look at, we have a core value at Team Impact around diversity, in every sense of the word, both our staffing, as we look at growing our staff, at our board level. And also we're really proud that, we want to get better, but about 45% of our participants are women and girls.
Yay.
And we hope to get 50, we want to equalize that or grow above.
Right.
But I think, there's some amazing stories about, we have this, this girl who was in a serious car accident, lost both legs, had brain trauma, and was drafted onto a volleyball team. And through that experience, she actually gained back function because she actually complied with the physical therapy and actually wanted to be with her team. And, they were there, they actually won for Division II, the national championship, and she was there for that. But for her, it was about giving her the perseverance to go through the challenging recovery so that she could have the most opportunity in life. And these women were with her every single day. They were with her at the rehab center. They were with her at the hospital every day. And they pushed her to take, and they culminated with a national championship, which is always a great thing. But I think ultimately for her, this little girl, Riley, it was about being able to, persevere through the challenging recovery that she had to do and come out on top. And that's what she's done. And she actually spoke at her gala and she was amazing. But I think, we have so many great women and girls that are part of our program, and that, we're seeing more. The challenge that we had initially is sometimes there's a perception that you have to love sports in order to be part of a program. And it's really not about the sport. It's the vehicle of how we do our program, but it's really about the power of team. And so the more we can get out there that you don't have to love sports, it's really, could you really use a support network? Half the people we work with have no idea what certain sports are, right? We work with 40 plus sports, like lacrosse, and we don't really have that near us, or, equestrian or synchronized swimming, but it's really about the right team for the right child at the right time. And that's what we look for in terms of fit. So although we have 1,200 teams on a waiting list, our ratios, we want to have about 4 opportunities for each child in any given selection, because we have to find the right team, whether it's environmental factors that have to be there, or whether it's just fit, right? This is too big a team. This team practices outside, they need to practice inside. And so really for us, it's about right team, right child, right time, right? It's probably best for us to have children who are not in the most intensive part of their treatment, even though we've had that and we've been successful there. But as they're kind of coming out of that and they're looking at transition or any transitions in their life, that's when we can play a significant role.
So I just think it's such a powerful program. And I think about my daughter, Sarah, who was born with Down syndrome, and she played a lot of Special Olympic sports and some other sports too. But I remember she joined the Special Olympics cheerleading team in Virginia. Mm-hmm. And I remember a big cheerleading, I don't know, where they all get to competition. And there were just these young athletes, because cheerleaders are athletes too. They're the young athletes from all over Virginia. And my daughter's team went out and cheered, and I was I'll get emotional. I was surprised at the response of the other cheerleaders, the cheerleaders without disabilities. The way they encouraged and they cheered and they really supported this team. It was really beautiful to watch. And sometimes our community says we don't want to be your inspirational porn, but it's so much bigger than that, because they weren't cheering these this team of special athletes because oh, aren't you cute, but because they actually were doing a really good routine. And so it's not inspirational porn to them. And these things do change people's lives. They change people's lives in ways that I think we are all, sometimes surprised by.
Right. And that's why,
So
by the way, that's why we're very clear with our teams that this is, and I said it before, like we're not trying to give you a mascot or something to sit on the side of one game. Like it's not about that, right? You're going to learn from the child's going to learn from you. You're going to work together and build a relationship. And, we vet our teams, very strongly, because we're not a one-shot program. So it's not like one and done. And we really want teams that are invested and really buy in to make the child part of the team in every sense of the word. And that's really important to us. And so we would never sacrifice quality for getting, even a top team.
right.
That's
Good.
not what it's about. We want the right teams, and so far we've really lived by that. And what happens we're looking at a partnership with the NCAA as well. I'm hoping to grow our relationship with them and have them really buy into what we're doing. And so far they've started to, which is great. But the more partners that we get at the higher level that are having influence in the business, in the sports, in the networks, the more that we can transform the communities. And so we're just getting started. We're 7.5 years old. We have big goals for the next 5 years. And I think together we'll look back in 5 years and say we did it. And with people like you who are influencers in this space and are working, fearlessly and tirelessly on behalf of people who are living with disabilities or serious or chronic illness, the more we work together. And that's the biggest thing. Let's not work in silos. Let's work together to support each other. I know that sometimes the competitive nature of nonprofits around fundraising can kind of skew us. But every day I tell my staff, I say, one, you can own our future. And two, I say, everything that we do, every decision we make is about how do we impact these kids and their families and the college athletes. Everything else will fall into place. And so that's how I really want to live. And I would just say out there for those who are out running other organizations, let's work together. Let's build coalitions. We're stronger together. And so part of what I want to, work with you and others on is how do we break down the silos and really work together?
I agree. And I think the silos really confuse the funders and the corporate foundations and the different funding, through investors, angel investors. I think it confuses everybody when we're not working together and collaborating. Seth, tell the audience, and let me ask you one more question before you tell the audience how they can find you. I know that your efforts have been in the United States right now. There are many people that listen to the program are outside the US in different countries. And I'm sure some of them are going to think, wow, this would be really cool in my country. There are corporations that listen to people supporting, that are part of corporations listening to the program. So, let us know what's next for you, a little bit more of what's next. You've already talked about that. And also tell the audience how they can, find you, your URLs, your social media, and, make sure that we want people to be able to find you.
So thank you. First of all, I would just say what we've done kind of, if you look at the next 5 years, we have some key priorities that we're focused on. One is improving the quality of our program. And we've really worked hard changing our service delivery model of social workers, making it a 2-year program with an alumni program, a lot more vetting and training, individualized game plan. So really focus on quality and getting it right. The second thing would be around building the regional infrastructure to support this effort, to make sure that we have consistency, we mitigate risk, and we really have a consistent high quality program. Third is really around scale. How do we begin to really grow this thing and do it in a way that we would never sacrifice quality for quantity, but do it in a way that allows us to help as many kids, as many families, as many teams as possible. And then, other key areas of the strategic plan are really around amplifying our brand, right? Becoming more of a household name to help us find more kids and teams and raise resources, diversify revenue. When I first started, about 84% of our budget was based on a gala in Boston, and now we're really working on diversification. Individuals, corporate, family foundations, young, keeping track of our alumni and making sure that we engage them, et cetera. And then strategic partnerships. And that could be with like-minded organizations, that could be with the NCAA, which is what we want. That could be with medical institutions, or that could be with, college athletic conferences or media. So looking at those are kind of our key pillars, and we want to get those right. So everything is a pilot, everything we try, we kind of we get it right in a safe environment. Ultimately, yeah, we want to look at scale. I mean, and I think that we would look to go. I mean, I've already gotten calls from Canada, from a variety of places in Europe, from Japan. And so we'd like to think about, where do we want to go there in terms of, and whether that is a kind of similar to a shared service model, which is what we're doing right now, or whether that's a franchise model. We want to look into that and have those conversations. And we're also getting questions about this actually could work for other types of children that are dealing with other issues, which could be they lost a parent, or they're living, they're economically fragile. And so not that we want to go there right now, and we want to stay within our lane and be really good at what we do, but we at least want to entertain questions and thoughts around how do we utilize this model to help as many people as possible. I would love for people to contact, us and kind of get in touch and kind of bring their ideas. Our website is www.goteamimpact.org. And then on, social media, you can find us, our hashtag is, Be the Impact. On Facebook, it's Go Team Impact, et cetera. We're on Twitter. We're on all the channels. We're on LinkedIn. And you can just search for us to find us. But ultimately, and my email and information is on our website. So we'd love for people to be in touch, contact us, bring their ideas, and also tell us how we can help them.
Yes. And if anybody wants to contact me to get in touch with Seth, feel free to do that too. We always will add his information in all the different places that we post the episode. But Seth, thank you so much for being on the program. I apologize for Hurricane Florence stepping in a little bit on us, but at least, yep. At least we were able to do it.
Exactly. And thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I've always, since I met you, I've respected everything that you do, and look forward to collaborating. And also I wish you good luck with Florence, and hope that everyone makes it out safe.
I agree. It's a lot of stuff going on right now. But Seth, thank you so much for being on the program. I want to special thanks to Doug Fresta, my producer, Caroline, who is our live captioner with archive captioning, which we just love them to death and appreciate all the extra work Chris does to make sure we have live captioning so that we can be fully accessible. But Seth, thank you for being on the program and for your work, and we're here for you. Let us know, come back on the program, give us more of an update, but we really are impressed with your work.
Great. Thank you so much.
So thank you. Bye, everyone.